an amazing show lined up for you guys today. I am welcoming Neil from Minnesota to the show, and he's got a whole host of different experiences from the heartlands. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you all for joining us, and special thank you goes out to all of you who continue to support the podcast and continue to spread the word. Always remember, if any of you out there have experiences of your own that you'd like to share, feel free to email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Again, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and you too could be a guest on the show. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure, and thanks for reaching out and having an interest in doing this. It really is amazing to me to have an opportunity to have people reach out and to share their stories. But I always start out, and this is my canned intro, Neil, so buckle up. But where did this begin for you?
Well, when I was about 4 years old, the first weird thing. Now, here, before I even get into this, I'm just going to say, and I've let you know, Brent, too, my experiences have just been sort of random and weird, and they're not really connected to anything. And
sure,
things kind of come out of left field sometimes, I never grew up in a haunted house or anything like that. But okay. The first experience was in my home. I was 4 years old. And we had just moved to a new home. And this, I don't know, maybe it could have been like my 4-year-old brain. I don't know. But it was actually the first time I'd ever had a room to myself. My sister and I in our old house had shared the same room. And I woke up middle of the night, scenario like children do, and was scared. And I left my room, and my room was weirdly off the kitchen. So I had to walk through the kitchen and then into the dining room, and my parents' bedroom was off the dining room. And when I walked into the dining room, it was like, I can't explain it really well other than that it was like there was a party going on, but there were no people there. I saw like shadows, mm-hmm. and there was a weird trail of energy running around these people in this room. And I kind of stopped, and I hightailed it to my parents' bedroom and jumped into bed with them, of course, woke them up. And I kept looking out the door, and I could see people, figures. Yeah. There was nothing clearly defined. And this weird sort of white light energy kind of circling around them. And I don't know. It almost, I sort of now think back on it, and I'm it's like I almost walked into a different, I had a sort of a time slip or something, where I was kind of there, but not, because they didn't acknowledge me. These figures didn't acknowledge me. And I could see people, sitting in the dining room. I could see people standing, and I just kept staring. And then just gradually it just sort of melted away. And then that was it. And it was just for I don't know, maybe 3 minutes or something. And our house was not haunted. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any spiritual activity in our house ever. Okay. Growing up. We did a little bit later. Some weird things happened, but I know what that was. But so that was really the first experience where I had this weird connection almost to sort of a different time, or it's I walked into a party in the 1930s that was going on in my house, but it wasn't. It was 1978 or whatever. So right. I don't know.
But there was no sound. It was all just visual.
No, just visual. It was just
that's awesome.
Shadow people, but mm-hmm. I was scared because I'm what's going on in here? And then I got into mom and dad's room and everything was fine. But it was just weird. I don't know. Then I didn't really have anything like that ever again. Never. That was just it. It just felt like I just like got close enough to that veil between this time and my time,
Sure.
but didn't quite go into it.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense or
Yeah,
not.
it does, actually, really does. Especially given the scope of stories that I've covered on the show, and weird, strange one-off events like that. And you try to make sense of it, but I think you've done a spectacular job kind of identifying what you watched and what you observed, because that makes perfect sense. That sometimes our world seems to bubble into one of the multiverses, or vice versa, or whatever. And
I think that's kind of what happened.
yeah.
And like growing up, though, like I said, there was no like paranormal activity in the house or anything. I never saw anything. However, I just, for some weird reason, was sort of interested in like ghosts. Of course, people of my generation we always go back to In Search of.
All right.
It's always that's kind of the thing for everything, anything with cryptids or UFOs or anything. Yeah. Because that show, I mean, if you think about it, was very groundbreaking, but that had an impact. It's like, so I anything that was sort of like spiritual related, I would watch. And then as I got a little bit older, I'd start checking out books and reading different things, anything that I kind of find. The more sensational stuff, I learned early on how bad like some horror movies really are. I was like, that can't really happen. I'm like, right. My mother, it was funny. We were watching the Amityville Horror, and my mother was watching it too, and she was not really a fan, but she's like, oh, the kids want to watch this, let's watch this. And she's like, oh my God, she's like, this is so fake. This is like, she'd never seen it. She'd never read any of the books on it. She's like, oh, this is so ridiculous. Oh my God. Uh-huh. And that kind of stuck with me. And then I'm like thinking, yeah, that's a little like far-fetched. Right. Like, that's just a little too weird, because she even had told me, like, she wasn't like, we were Christian, but I'll say my parents were open-minded.
Okay.
And she even she babysat at a house in my hometown where apparently, like, she's like, when you babysit, there were people up in the attic, like, it sounded like 4 guys playing poker. And she knew that she was babysitting in the house with the kids and the parents were away. But she could hear men up in the attic, like, talking and joking and playing cards. But there was nobody up there.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And it's funny when I think of, like, I know which house it is in Winona too. So it's like, it's like I would always go by it. I'm like, oh, that's the house where those old guys are playing cards in the attic, because my mom used to babysit there. My cousin and his wife, they had a ghost in their house that they called George. They never saw him. It was just, they would hear him walk up and they called him George. I don't know if that was his name. Probably not. But it seems like most ghosts are named George anyway. So, from my experience, but they would just hear him walk up and down the steps. Mm-hmm. And then the other one too from my childhood, that's like sort of like, and I think this is why, because I knew that my cousin Harold and his wife, and my mom had told me that story. And then my dad's sister, my Auntie Dorothy, she lived down in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And she bought this house, and from the owner, this guy, and he said to her, well, I can't stay here anymore. My wife is still here. Well, and she, of course, knew that the wife had passed away and like thought, oh, the memories and everything. Sure. No, she was really still there. My aunt would be alone in the house. She'd hear keys rattling. She would hear people walking even all the doors are locked, and she'd hear like somebody walking through the house, and she didn't really bother her. She's like, she was a nice old lady, didn't really bother her. But the problem was my cousin, her daughter, had an experience. She had a friend over for a sleepover, and my aunt went out, and my aunt came home, and the two were trying to crawl out the bathroom window. I still don't know what they saw or what they experienced, but then she sold the house. So that was, and I remember staying there too when I was a kid, mm-hmm. and I never saw anything or whatever, but I remember being in that house. But yeah, so those were my childhood sort of things. But then I got sort of interested, and then
can I stop you for a second?
Sure, absolutely.
Because I'm curious about the the poker playing game up in the attic, and you gotta wonder in a situation like that, is that I mean, I just think of spirits being very much like us. And as much as we may love to play poker or to do these pastimes, nobody can do it every day. Maybe as a spirit, you got more free time. I mean, that's always a possibility, but you wonder if that's an active, intelligent haunting, or is that a residual playback? You know, the stone tape thing like you and I were discussing earlier. You know, it's just this recording that keeps spitting out.
I asked my mom. I just asked her. I said, "Well, what? There were people." And at first I thought she's like, there was just some guys up in there. She's like, "No, there was nobody home." She said, "But you'd be downstairs and you would hear like guys up talking like in the attic, and like you'd hear the like chairs moving and things, like you'd hear furniture moving, but there was nobody home."
Right.
Now, maybe she was babysitting on Fridays and these guys had a poker evening for 50 years every Friday night.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't ask her, well, what days of the week was this? So, but it also could just be like stone tape where it was just repetitive because they did it every week, whatever, regularly. Or maybe in the afterlife they met too. Who can say?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's anybody's guess, but in either way, it's still incredibly profound and fantastic. It's just one of those questions that leaps out to me. It's like, I wonder if that was actively aware of her and we're showing her like, hey, we're here again. We're getting together. That kind of thing. Or if it was just incidental, like, you know, that energy just played itself again.
Yeah. And that's it. And I asked her, I was like, well, were you scared? She's like, well, no, she's like, I never saw anything. I just would hear people up in the attic when I was babysitting. And she just said, she's like, I wanted that 25 cents more than, than running out of the house. So I stayed, she was honest. I mean, she did. She's like, I was babysitting. Well, that was probably back in the 1940s. So
right. Yeah.
She was getting a quarter for babysitting. That was a lot of money back then. She's probably, she's like, no, she did. She's like, I wanted that money more than I would have.
Well, good for her. I think it's incredible that she saw it through and stuff, because it does take a lot for anybody to sit in the face of that. I would just oftentimes in those situations where those audio anomalies like that are happening, most often, even though you can hear that conversations are happening, making out the words is next to impossible. It's like it's a whole different tongue of some kind. But it would be interesting just to sit and listen to it and just to hear what you could hear. And even if it could be recorded, and it's one of those 1 in a million kind of shots, I think that. Yeah. But very cool. Very cool story.
Who knows? Maybe they're still playing poker. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they are. Somebody should set up a microphone.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I know. Like I said, I know which house it is.
Very cool. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to go back to that because that's just kind of interesting.
Fine. No, that's fine. And then really, like I said, then I would just read things, or if there was anything, then I think I was maybe a teenager. And then, of course, Unsolved Mysteries, would come on, and they'd have every once in a while the paranormal one, and so I'd always enjoyed that. I always thought that was pretty cool, but I really didn't have that many experiences or really anything. I did now, and of course everybody's going to go, oh my God, evil. The whole Ouija board thing.
Sure.
You know what? The person that I first ever did a Ouija board with, basically she told me, she said, this is not to be messed with.
Mm-hmm.
Said, this is a tool to communicate. However, you're opening yourself up to very many different things when you use this. However, everything that you do spiritually is intention and how you protect yourself.
Sure.
And you have to, do your own protection.
Yes.
And you have to make sure that you're only inviting, because with anything, I think that you invite, if you aren't specific about what you're inviting, you get anything. But if you're very specific with it. So I was doing that. I had a very good friend of mine that thing went crazy. I don't know. It was like just our energies together, and just, I mean, most of it was just, dumb crap that, you'd ask like stupid questions. I mean,
Sure.
when you're 15 years old, I mean, what are you going to, ask? But I never had like any negative things, but always, you bathe yourself in white light, you accept only the good energy, and you make sure that you say goodbye at the end, and you make sure that you cut it off.
Yeah.
That's, and that's the thing. So I did that. And then that led into, I've also do tarot readings, and I've been doing that for a long time, but I don't really see tarot necessarily as, I see tarot as more of a way as a tool to step outside of,
yes,
for a person to step outside of their situation and look at it from as a third party.
Yep.
I think as far as a divination, yeah, I think sometimes it's a little weirdly accurate, but overall, I think most of the time. So I did that, and I was into some very spiritual things, and then I kind of had opened myself up, because I was like, okay, you know what? I have never really had any of these experiences. I had that one weird thing when I was a kid, and I was like, well, maybe if I'm just a little bit more open, maybe I'll experience some of this, and maybe I'll see something, and then I'll know for sure,
Right.
So fast forward, started going to college. Of course, I was a theater major, and every theater in the world has a ghost in it. So like they don't all talk about this. I never really saw anything. There were a few weird things that happened every once in a while, but it's like it could have been anything. Okay. But I made really good friends with someone who was from Rhode Island, and so he and I, and then two of our other friends, decided to do a road trip during spring break out to Rhode Island. And most kids are going to Florida to a beach. No, we're going to go to Rhode Island, to cold and wet New England. Okay, But so we drove from Minnesota to Rhode Island, and it's about a 26-hour road trip. And I drove about 24 of those 26 hours to get there. Because it was my car, and we got there and went to my friend's house, and it was built in the 70s. His family had built it, and it was in a little subdivision, and we unpacked and got settled in, and we're there couple days, and like the third day I think we were there, and I was still tired. I was still tired from that, because I'd pushed myself.
Wow.
I'd really pushed myself with the driving, and well, the thing is that we hit a lot of like snow and wet weather conditions driving through Pennsylvania and into up into Connecticut. Oh, and I just didn't trust my friends driving my car. So it was my own fault. And his house was a split level home. And so upstairs were like two bedrooms, downstairs 2 bedrooms and a family room, and then the upper part was also living room, dining room, kitchen, and bathroom. And so we were down in the family room, and I don't know, when I got into his house, I just sort of felt kind of like something's not right here. There's an energy or something, because at that point I'd been doing, I'd have my cards and chakra, and I'd been, meditating and doing those types of things. I was like, something's not right here. But I was like, nah, forget it. I'm just being weird. I'm tired. I'm very tired.
Sure.
So we're sitting watching television. We just kind of, it was in the evening. It was already dark. We just had the TV on, and we were all talking about like, oh, what are we going to do tonight? And I'm watching TV. And I look over from the TV to the doorway, and there was just like, when somebody takes a picture of you with a flash and you get that like weird afterburn flash.
Yep.
Standing in the doorway was a child.
Ooh.
And it was just like, just so split second, like millisecond, like there and then gone. And then I looked back at the TV, because, sometimes when you look at the TV and you look over, like the image will also carry.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there was like a car commercial or something on there. It was like something. I was like, okay, that's weird. So I'm like, but I'm tired. I've been driving. So couple nights later, then the story, I'm getting to the point. One of his best friends, like they'd known each other since kindergarten, came over and we were talking about this, that. We were sitting in the family room and somehow, I don't know, they got on the subject of like ghosts or weird stuff. And I just looked at them and I just said, yeah, I think there's something kind of not right here. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, I said, nothing. And his friend, she was like, no, tell me, what did you see something? Is there something going on? What's happening? And the other two friends were also there, but they were talking and to somebody else and doing something. I said, I don't know, but is it a child? Their faces dropped, like their jaws dropped, and they basically grabbed me and said, you need to come with us.
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like, okay. So we went into my friend's bedroom because he's like, listen, I didn't want to do this in front of the other two because they're like scared of everything. But there's a story that I've never told you that you don't know. But my friend, his best friend that was there, because she's known him since that time. And the thing was, I'm like thinking to myself, well, it can't be anybody in the family. I know they're his whole family. First of all, they built the house.
Okay.
I know his sisters. He only has two siblings. He has two sisters. Both of them are alive. He's got his mom and his dad. And he's like, okay, well, this is the story. When we were kids, across the street from us, there were two girls that were a little bit older than me. About my sister. His sister was like 3 or 4 years older than him. So he was about like 5. So they must have been like about 7, 8 years old. And would always play together because they lived right across the street. Well, one night, my friend's mom said, hey, kids, come on in for supper. So my friend and his sister went into dinner, and they were sitting at the table, and they heard a car screech. And the mother ran to the front window, and one of the little girls that lived across the street had gotten hit by a car.
Oh, God.
And she was taken to the hospital, but she unfortunately died in the hospital. Now, they had just built this house, but the basement was not finished off yet. Like my friend's bedroom wasn't down there. His sister's room wasn't down there, and the family room, nothing. So all the neighborhood kids would come into the basement of that house and play, like if the weather was not good, because it was a completely open space.
Oh, okay.
So it was like there were no walls, there was nothing,
Right.
So they would all the neighborhood kids would play down there. And he said, ever since this little girl had died, they felt like she was in their house and she was down in the basement, which is where we were sitting when I saw this. And he said, I think because it was what she knew, like where we would play, that she wanted to be down there.
Oh.
And he said, he had never told me this, and he knew he'd never told our friends either. He actually is even better friends with them to a degree than me. And I was just like, and he looked at me, he's like, why did you see her? I don't know.
What have you done?
And he said, we've known she's here. Like there's like weird stuff. We'll hear like a kid down here sometimes. And he's like, I've known like she's here. And his sister also too, who used to, play with her and her sister, like they knew this, like they knew she was down there, but he's like, we've never seen her. And we don't talk about it.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, that's all right. Yeah, I saw that. I guess. Right. I don't know. So that was like the very first like big thing that I'd ever experienced where I was just like, okay, what's going on? Brain. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. So that was that was quite a weird experience.
There's another point to this that I find absolutely fascinating, and it seems very unique to the spiritual experience, especially with apparitions and ghosts and whatnot. Now, again, a lot of times I think there can be children spirits. I think that they're probably much more rare than people expect, but because I think that other things look like kids, because that makes it easier for them. But in this case, let's say it is an actual child, and it sounds like it is, like it's been there forever and been interacting to some degree. But what I find really curious is that if this was parallel to a human experience, this child would have grown into a young adult to a teenager, young adult, and then who knows, into some elderly advanced state. So sitting in a basement, playing with, what little toys are there probably isn't going to continue to entertain, an organic developing spirit. But whatever it is about these ghosts, they seem like a snapshot of a spirit. Like they're just a capture, and they just seem to stay in that state perpetually, into forever, maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
But they're not, they don't continue to develop like people do, they just remain these little girl spirits or little kid spirits, and they like to play with the same toys every day for, 100 years. And it's, I find that curious.
And it's kind of sad in a way too.
Yeah.
But the thing though is like children though can be kind of, children can be willful. They have their own way. And if, he doesn't want to move and she wants to stay there, she's going to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe she just, playing, but also too observing and seeing how her friends are growing up.
Sure.
And I don't know. Maybe she like went across the street to her old house too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't just in their basement. I mean, maybe she was just like in the vicinity. Maybe like, I don't know, but kids are, they're a little willful. They'll kind of do what they want. And it's like, they're like, no, you know what? I'm going to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very curious, but it's kind of a unique situation. And I guess I'd never really thought about it until now when you were explaining that story, because just imagine if it was an 8-year-old you, how long would you be playing with the trucks? It wouldn't be 30 years or better.
Yeah, but then also too, we have to also think about what is time.
Right.
That opens up a whole new kettle of fish.
Or how they experience it. Yeah. Is it just unique and different? Are they just stuck in that moment in time? Like I said, a snapshot.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, it's like we talked a little bit earlier too. I mean, we don't have any clue how all of this works, and I don't think we have the capacity to understand it.
Sure.
I just want to share some stories because it's like just so people know that that they're not crazy when they have experiences, and also too, my experiences have not been like evil or weird or just really threatening or anything bad. So I mean This was a kid. And then as soon as I knew that, and then after you told me that, I'm like, oh, it's just this little girl who lived across the street from them. Mm-hmm. Okay, big deal. Move on. What's she going to do to me? Take away my birthday? The next kind of thing that happened, I did a study abroad program when I was living in London. Now, when you're in college and you're living abroad, like you're doing your classes and you're studying and you don't get out that much, well, except for the pub on the weekends. Maybe did that a little bit too much. But my sister came to visit, and it was wonderful because she wanted to see like touristy stuff. Now, I am sorry to say I did not do a lot of touristy stuff as a university student. I was doing my drinking on the weekends, class during the week type deal.
Sure. I
mean, we did have the program that I was in. We did do like basically a field trip every week, which was kind of cool because it sort of forced you to do that.
Yeah.
I did have a art in London class where we met at a different museum every week, which was really cool. But anyway, so my sister was there. And she's like, I want to go to the Tower of London. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm like, everybody knows it's the Tower of London. Yeah. It's the most haunted building in the UK. It is. Yeah. It's been there for 1,000 years. It's been, everybody knows this. I had read stories about all the ghosts and everything. So, I'm going in there with this preconceived notion of, okay, horrible. I know all the bad stuff that happened here.
Yeah.
People were beheaded. I know this. So, And you feel that energy kind of when you go in there, and whether it's, actually you feeling that, or it's just because you know all the stories.
Right.
And so we were walking around and we're going through the different, sections. They sort of have it like sort of set up where you start at one point and you kind of go around, and we're in this one tower, and we everything, looking around and blah, blah, blah. Like, and then we leave and we get out onto the battlements, and it's, and I don't know if you know this or if the listeners know this, but the people that work there, the beef eaters, the guards that work there, they actually live there. So
I didn't know that.
Oh yes, they actually have their own quarters in the tower, because once the gates on the tower are locked at night, you can't leave. You have to stay there. So they can get like, so for example, if somebody has like a wedding or something, they can get like special leave to enter, come and go. They're not like prisoners there, but they really have to jump through hoops to get the special things that says they can leave. So anyway, so we're walking out there, and I stopped, and my sister never seen me like this before, and I just started crying, and I started breathing, and I was just like freaking out, and I went over to the wall, and it's overlooking the houses where the beef eaters live. It's like they have their own little street. It's on the kind of the outside, and I'm standing there, and I think it was the White Tower was the tower I was at. Don't quote me on that. Okay. And I just all of a sudden was just overcome with this emotion, and my sister was like, "What's wrong, Neil? What's wrong?" And I said, I just have to talk this out. And she's like, "No, it's fine. Tell me what's going on." And I said, It's just horrible. I mean, I know where we are. I know that like this is really a bad place. There was torture, there was killing, there was murder, there was execution. There is all kinds of horrible things that happen here. And I just was breathing heavily and crying. And then it just left.
Wow.
And I looked and I was like, "I'm sorry." And she's like, no, it's fine. I said, "It's probably just, because you see these exhibits and you read these things as you're going through. I think I was like, just kind of caught up with me, this, and I, like I said, I'd read stuff in the beginning, before I was even there. Well, we finish our tour. I'm fine. Everything's good. And we get done and we're walking out, and it's getting close to closing time, and my sister and I are down in like this in one of the main streets that's heading out to the exit, and one of the beef eaters stops us, and he just said, "Oh, thank you so much for visiting the Tower of London today, and hope you enjoyed your visit." And we're like, "Yeah, we did." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm sorry, I know you're busy and you probably have something to do, but have you ever seen any ghosts here?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "I've never seen any ghosts here. However, at night we patrol the tower, and we have big mastiff dogs that we take out and we patrol." And he's like, "And there is one spot in the tower where my dog will not walk. I literally have to pick the dog up and move them across the spot. The dog will not move. It will sit down. It will not move." And he pointed up to the wall.
Wow.
And it was right where I had my experience.
Oh, interesting.
And my sister just looked at me, and I just looked at her, and I said, "Okay, thank you." And we kept walking. And I was like, "Jennifer, I can feel stuff that dogs can feel, apparently."
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of revealing though too, because oftentimes when animals do that, we think, "Oh, it's evil, it's something evil there," but it could just be this sorrow, this such a deep pit of sadness right there.
Especially dogs. I mean, dogs are so connected with us as human beings. Yep. They really are. I mean, I think all house pets, and
sure,
my cats will attest to that. That we're there, but dogs are very, they know if there's something wrong, if there's something not right. And right. We were just joking. I'm like, "Okay, great. Yep. Oh, I can sense stuff like a dog. Great."
So just when you get bored, we just got to throw a stick for you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yep. Go fetch. So we were joking about that, but yeah, it was just a weird experience. And the thing is like I said, my initial reaction was, this is just me having read stuff about this. I've been walking through here. I've seen exhibits talking about prisoners and everything. And it's just sort of like, subconsciously came to, that, and that could have been part of it too. Yeah. That really could have, but I literally had to stop. I could not move. I had to stop. I just went over to the wall.
Wow.
And my sister was just like, she was kind of freaked out for me. She's like, "Are you okay? Are you kind of like, I'm fine. I'm sorry." Blubbering like an idiot.
Well, I mean, it was, it sounds like it was very genuine emotion, and maybe that's part of it. Is this that those are maybe unresolved sadnesses, and you shedding tears there was maybe a very healing thing for that energy.
Yeah, maybe it just needed to be, the energy needed to be acknowledged. I'm not saying it was even a spirit person or an astral or anything like that. I think it's just it could just be that energy. Like, I think like everything is energy. I think we are energy, and this is, that energy comes in many different forms. Sometimes it manifests as a person. Sometimes it manifests as, just as a mass or, like whatever. I mean, that's
a temperature. It could be any number. Yeah.
So, I mean, and you're quite possibly right. Maybe me just shedding some tears for this, whatever happened, whether it was one person or 20 people, I don't know.
Wow.
So that could be part of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then, then after college, then I moved up to the Twin Cities. Mm-hmm. And so this is more random stuff. So we've already had all these random things. Now here's more random. So this was, I got a job at a bar as a video jockey, as a VJ. So I play music videos, and it was an older building. And it was more of a club than a bar. It was like we had a dance floor side, we had a video bar side, there was a back bar that was like the Western bar, and then there was also another patio with a bar at the back. So there were like four. So it was like a bar complex. Mm-hmm. And above it, though, was a hotel. And even when I worked there, it was a hotel, but it was more of like a rent by the hour kind of a hotel, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So,
sure.
So it was weird. And then then a few years after I was there, then they closed that down. I mean, they were like, this is gross. We don't need, after a massive bed bug infestation that was disgusting. I mean, like, they're like, nope, we're done with this. We're not making any money. This is gross. We don't need to perpetuate this. Right. So anyway, so they turned all that upper part into storage and everything. So, but anyway, so one of the things was we'd all, like, I'd heard, my coworkers joking about the ghosts, and everything. And they were like, well, this place used to be a funeral home. I'm like, well, first of all, I don't buy into the fact that a funeral home would make something haunted, because in death, if you didn't have anything to do with that funeral home, why would you want to be there?
Right.
Like,
sure.
Like, I don't want to hang out by the place where I was embalmed. But I'd heard a few people talking about things, and I'd never really had an experience. Well, one night I was working, and at that time the bars closed at 1. Okay. What security would do is they'd go from bar to bar, and we'd turn the lights on and everything. So they turn the lights on, and I was in the video bar, and then so I was done. And I went over to the dance floor side, and there were double doors between the dance floor side and the video bar side, so you could see into the both bars from either side. Okay. So I actually was sitting on the bar on the dance floor side. I jumped up on the bar, and then one of the security guards came over and talked to me, and we were completely closed, and we were just talking, how was your night? And we saw walk past the doorway looking into the other bar, this guy, jeans, t-shirt, baseball hat, and the security guard, we weren't even like 15 feet away from the door. And so this guy walks by, and the security, oh God, we got a straggler,
Yeah.
So he runs over there. I go over there with him. We get into that room, and there's nobody there.
Ooh.
There is absolutely nobody there. The only exit the person possibly could have gotten out of was the emergency exit on the corner, and that was armed. In fact, the security guard even tested it to make sure, and it was armed. There was nobody there. Because if the first thought was, sometimes the guests would say be in the bathroom or something, and then we'd close down, and then they would, they get locked in or whatever. That can happen. So that was like the initial reaction. Mm-hmm. And we were just like looking at each other like, what just happened? He's like, did you see him? I was like, yes, I saw him. And I was like, did you see him? Where is he? I don't know. He's not here.
Wow.
Well, he can't get out. I know he can't get out. we were just going back and forth, like, what the heck? Like,
Yeah.
And so that was kind of weird. That was one experience there. The other one that I had, and this was on a Sunday afternoon. I would do we did like a Sunday afternoon happy hour. So I was working Sunday afternoon. And so half the club was really, well, there was only one bar open. It was just the video bar. And then the dance floor side was completely closed. So all the doors were shut off. However, there was a bathroom off of the dance floor. There was like a hallway that went off the dance floor that went actually down to the manager's office.
Okay.
And there was a bathroom down there. And so there were regular bathrooms for like the video bar or whatever. But I was like, I'll go over to the other side because I want the privacy,
Right. Sure.
It's like, whatever. And I'd been drinking the night before and it probably wouldn't be a very pleasant experience. And I wanted some privacy. So, I went over there and I'm walking to the hallway and there was a light on in the hallway but the dance floor, all the lights were off. So the only lights that were on was the hallway light. And I saw like basically kind of like this mass. It looked like a lumpy beach ball covered in glowing yarn. Like
Really?
It was so, and my first thought was, oh, that's a weird reflection from the disco ball, because I thought, because, we had like 5 disco balls in the middle of the dance floor.
Right.
Well, there weren't any lights on the disco balls. There weren't any lights on the dance floor.
Mm.
And I saw this thing like sort of just there. And I'm like, what is that reflection? And then the thing shot down the hallway, like out of sight.
Wow. Oof.
And I was like, I ran after it like an idiot because I'm like, because I wanted to see what it was. And so I got down to the bathroom, got down to the office. There was nobody in the office. And I just stood in the bathroom like a crazy person. I was like, I saw you, I think. I'm not scared. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it. But I got to use the bathroom. So I'm sorry. And it was so weird. It was like, it looked like a lumpy beach ball covered in glowing like white string. That's the only way that I can. And it kind of like shifted. That was the weird thing. It was there. And at first that's why it was just sitting. It was there. And I thought, oh, that's a weird reflection. But then it like shifted on its axis or something. Oh. And then it just moved and it booked down the hall out of sight.
That's really powerful. Wow.
It was really weird. I was like, well, I mean, but I'm not scared. I mean, the thing is my whole thing with this bar. Mm-hmm. If there's anything going to be haunting there, they're going to be people that really either mostly, for the most part, really enjoyed being there. Like this was, how bars and clubs, that's your hangout. Right. That's where you have fun.
Yep.
And so I'm like, my frame of mind was, well, these are just people that they're probably just still having fun.
Yeah.
Now, the thing was, I mentioned this to the manager at the time, and I just said, I know this is really weird, because I said I've heard other stories from other employees, and I mentioned this to him, and I just said, but this is what I saw, and he said, well, he's like, I think he's like that it's our old manager. Because here in the office, he's like, stuff will go flying off the shelves. I will be back here alone, and stuff will just like fall off the shelf or get thrown onto the floor. Uh-huh. And it's like if something, he's like, it only seems like if it's maybe something that he doesn't like, if I'm doing something he doesn't like.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, because he was a manager there for decades, and he really love that place, and he's like, that's what I think it is. So some of the other weird things this happened was our Christmas party, and like 50 people saw this. We had on one end of on the dance floor side, we had a coat check. Mm-hmm. And basically the coat check window, it was like a big thing, and there was like a sliding door that came down to the counter. Okay. But when it was closed, there was still like a little space above the sliding door, because it was like all glass brick, and then there was like sort of like a little So there's a space. So if you really wanted to break into the coat check, if it was closed, you could climb over the door and climb into the coat check.
Gotcha.
Why would anyone do that?
Yeah.
No. But anyway, so, and I had not gotten there. I had to work my full-time job, and I wasn't there for this, but I got there and everybody was just like talking because they're like, they were all kind of freaked out. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, the coat check? They're like, yeah. He's like, well, we were all standing here, and they had a big buffet of food and drinks and everything. And he's like, we looked over, and there was a guy's face in the little space above the sliding door. And we all saw him, and then he just disappeared.
Wow. That's incredible.
And like there were like 50 people there at that time.
That's amazing. Very cool.
So that was pretty weird. And then one of the bar backs, one of their jobs, and then the kitchen job was to do the laundry. Like they have to do all the bar towels and everything. And the washing machine was up in the old hotel. And the one guy was up there one day, and he was throwing stuff in the dryer and doing all this. And then he just heard this voice, "What you doing?" And he just stopped and like turned around, and there's nobody there. And he just said, "Laundry." And it just kept going, because the only other person in the bar at that time was the bartender, who was at the bar, like making drinks, who had customers. And it would have been very difficult for him to get upstairs to that room. It just wouldn't happen. It was, afternoon or whatever.
Right.
And then the other one, this will be the last bar story. Okay. So I hope I'm not boring you.
No, you're fantastic. I love listening to it.
This one guy who worked security there, big guy, like 6'4", 6'5", real nice guy, big, but like I wouldn't want to mess with him, and I don't think anybody would want to mess with him. He was kind of a scary guy. Well, one of the managers said, "Hey, can you run upstairs?" This was to the old hotel. Because they use that then for storage. He's like, "I need this and this, and it's in it's this room, blah, blah." And he knew where it was. I think he'd been up there before. So he ran up there, and he came back down like 5 minutes later, and he didn't have with the manager. He's like, "What's the matter?" He's like, "I don't want to talk about it." He's like, "What?" He's like, "I'll go up there." He's like, "I'm not going up there by myself."
Wow.
And the manager was like, "Well, why? What happened?" He's like, "I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it."
Whoa.
And okay, so he got somebody else, and they went up there and got what the manager needed. Well, a couple people asked him about it. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not talking about it. And he's like, okay. And he's like, all I know is I will never go back up there by myself ever again. Jeez. And we're like, okay. So we, didn't think much of it. Well, then finally, after work one night, he had a drink or two. Then this was a couple months later, and I was like, "So, you had an experience. Like, what happened?" He's like, "Okay." He's like, I'm not crazy." I'm like, "I know you're not crazy. Just tell me." I mean, this guy isn't scared of anything,
right?
And he went up there, and he started walking down the hallway to go get whatever he was going to get, and it was set up like a hotel, so it had like long hallway from the front to the back.
Oh, right.
And he saw this person walk out of a wall and into a doorway across the hall. He just saw this person walk out of the wall and walk into the doorway.
No.
And he'd never had an experience like that. I mean, I probably would have, probably left too. I don't know though. No, I probably would have ran after it because I'm a weirdo.
Yeah.
I'd probably, I saw you.
It's okay. That's
was
very powerful, though. To catch a full apparition like that is extraordinarily rare, but obviously just it wanted him to see it, And
like the thing is too, is like with the guy that we saw, like that guy was as solid as you and me. That was we were both, we thought, oh, it's a customer,
right.
Had too much to drink, doesn't know we're closed.
Yep.
We need to, get him out, get him a cab, whatever we need to do. And it wasn't there. It was it was solid. He was a solid person.
Jeez.
And, it's just weird. It was just very, very weird. And the thing, like The thing is, though, was like this security guard that was with me when that happened. If he'd said that he saw that and I didn't see it, I wouldn't have believed him because he was kind of a wingnut. I've been like, oh yeah, you saw that.
Sure you did.
No, but we both saw it and we both were like, what? I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, those are the ones I had. The other they had other little stories, like the barbacks, if they'd be down the basement, they'd say that like stuff would get moved. The one manager said that stuff would get moved. Like he would be doing inventory and counting, and he'd turn around and things would be moved after he just counted.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but he didn't hear it move.
Uh-huh.
So, and he was just like, okay, all right, I'm getting out of here.
I'm done.
That basement was pretty creepy. So
it's been an amazing journey, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate, that you're bringing all this to the table, and these stories are fantastic. They really are, because you were, I think, very fortunate to be able to witness such an incredibly robust cross section of this other world that surrounds us,
Yeah. But like I said, though, they're random and they weren't really scary. They're just, wasn't scared. That's okay. They're just people. They just don't have bodies,
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. But still, it's most of what you've seen, I've never seen. I mean, I've seen certainly plenty of strange things, but the whole apparition thing, I haven't seen a lot of that. And I think it's amazing. And I really do appreciate you coming on and being willing to share that with the listeners.
It is my pleasure, Brent. It's been just a blast.
Well, thank you so much, Neil. And if more stuff comes up, will you come back and keep filling us in? Sure, absolutely. I can go up, please. Like I said, I can talk all day long. No, you did great, man. It was a pleasure to listen to you, and I can't thank you enough. All right, you're very welcome, Brent. Take care. You as well, sir. Get out! Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on tonight's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio, as well as finding us on Twitter. We're on Twitter at Paranormal Portal, PORTL, and we'd love to have you stop by our YouTube page and subscribe and check out our shows there. We got hundreds of shows, Journeys into the Paranormal Portal, so I hope you'll check it out, guys. We're over there at youtube.com/Paranormal Portal, so hope to see you guys soon. We'll be back, of course, for more podcasts in the coming days. So we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can.